the first book of Samuel, session 47. And we looked before how David escaped to the cave Adullam, that means justice for God's people, and how everyone that was in distress and in debt and that was discontented gathered themselves together with David and formed a big army. And I read in the book of Maccabees, the period between Malachi, the last book that was written, and the time of Yeshua. In that period when Alexander the Great started taking over from it was Babylon, and then the Medes and the Persians, and then the Greeks took over, and Alexander the Great became the world leader. And one of the descendants of these Greek leaders was Antiochus Epiphanes, and he's such a massive Antichrist figure. He's the one that brought the abomination of desolation upon the holy altar of God, and he killed all the people that kept the Torah, and he totally tried to convince and force everyone to just worship the Greek gods. And it was in this period that Maccabee, his name I think was Matthew Maccabee, and his son was Judah Maccabee. They were from the priestly order. They actually started doing battles, and they also went away. They were hiding away in caves from the Greek soldiers, but not only from the Greek soldiers, also from the people in Jerusalem that decided to join themselves to the Greeks, because if you don't, you get killed. And their own brothers also started fighting against them to show the Greeks that they are loyal to them. Just like this whole part that we are reading, how the people of Jerusalem are joined with Saul, and all the people are being promised by this Antichrist government of Saul. If they are on Saul's side against David, then Saul will actually reward them for that. And if you are on David's side, you are going to be killed. We're going to look at this now next. But it's amazing how the people that was in distress and in debt and discontented with Saul and with the society of Jerusalem at that stage, how they joined David, where David was hiding away from the government at that stage. Prophetically, how we will be hiding away under the justice of God's people in the cave of Adullam. And God will send all his children to start gathering together. And this is how David's army became bigger. Although they were in hiding, although everybody thought they've got no chance. The same with the Maccabees. They were in hiding. And the Greek army was massive, just like Saul's army was much bigger than David's army. But David was standing for Yhwh, and the Maccabees was standing for Yhwh. And just like with David, although he thought he was alone, many people started gathering with him, fellow believers that was ardent for the covenant with Yhwh, and that didn't want to be deceived or forced to deny Yhwh and join themselves to the enemy. And also with the Maccabees, as they were in hiding, people from all over that was ardent and passionate and loyal to Yhwh, they joined themselves also to the Maccabees, and that's how the Maccabean army also grew. And although David's army was small, it's only about 400 men, and although the Maccabean army was 400 men, and although the Maccabean army was small in comparison to the Greek army and the whole world government at that stage, because they were fighting for the holiness of the Creator God, and they didn't allow themselves to be deceived or brought in so much fear, and now we're talking end times, brought to so much fear that they decided to rather go with the enemy that is ruled by the enemy that is God's enemy, where Satan is in charge of that whole government system that is persecuting the dragon in the book of Revelation, that is persecuting the end day saints who keep the testimony of Yeshua and the Torah of Yhwh. And this is the prophecy and the encouragement out of the life of David and out of the life of Judah Maccabee, how God caves, but we are an army that's being raised up for the end day battle for Yahuwah's glory against the world leaders that is ruled by Satan, who is trying to eradicate not only the Torah, but Yeshua and the people that follow Yeshua and the Torah, because they worship God in truth and in spirit. And they understand the bigger picture of God's kingdom that has to be established. And that's why they are doing all these things that we learn out of David's life, like we learned in all the previous things. It's amazing. Even with Judah Maccabees, how these guys went out at night, like Gideon, and they fought at night when nobody saw them, and they destroyed the altars, and they actually killed so many people. So then, in the end days, are we not allowed to kill? But you are not allowed to murder. But the battle against the battle against the enemy is, and Yeshua is the same. When he comes with his sword, he's going to destroy the enemy. It's not about murder. This is about fighting in God's army against the army of darkness. And Judah Maccabee and David both, for me, is beautiful pictures of men after God's own heart. But it's a struggle. It's difficult. People die. People sacrifice themselves for God. And as we're going to see now, as we continue with 1 Samuel chapter 22, we ended in verse 7, where Saul said to his servants that stood round about him, "Will David give you anything? I can give you lots of stuff. I can give you property, possession, and position, and honor, and glory, and money, and power, and popularity. And I'll give you a clarity, and I'll give you a good position in my army, so that you can have everything you want. Do not conspire against me for David. Rather conspire with me against David." And that is the conspiracy also for the end day saints to be aware of, that we must not be found in a conspiracy against Yahuwah's kingdom, although it is a difficult road. Because what we see next is Saul continues to say, "All of you have conspired against me. There's not even one of you that is showing me that, first of all, my son Jonathan is loving David more than he loves me, and he has made a covenant with David. And there's none of you that is sorry for me. Oh, poor me, I'm the king, and none of you are loyal to me. How dare you like David more, or try to protect David against me? Don't you respect me? Don't you love me? None of you are sorry for me, to show me that even my own son have stirred up David against me. And David is now lying in wait because he wants to kill me. And Jonathan is helping them. Are you helping David as well? Or are you with me?" So as he's sitting there in his self-pity and in his accusations against his army and his counselors and his ministers and his presidents and the whole New World Order, one guy comes up, Doeg, the Edomite, which was set over the servants of Saul. Now, who's this Dog? I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce his name. Doeg. I'm just going to call him the dog because he's a real dog. He's a hond. He's a dog. He's like a biting hyena. He's not loyal. He's not like the dipping the water in the times of Gideon that was loyal to Yahuwah. This is a dog that is like a hyena, taking advantage and even willing to be dishonest and to choose the evil King Saul above the righteous King David, like the dogs that we will meet in the end days that will choose for their own benefit to get possession and money and power and to be able to continue to buy and sell. They are willing to sell out David, the beloved, God's people in the end days, his beloved, his bride, his end day saints. Now, where did we meet Dog? Do you remember? In one of the previous sessions, we saw when David went to the priest, Ahimelech, to get some shelter and food. Then Dog the Edomite was actually there. It says in chapter 21, verse 7, there was a certain servant of Saul that was there that day, and his name was Dog. And he actually saw everything that happened between David and Ahimelech, the priest. So he comes forward and he says, I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob, to Ahimelech, the priest, the son of Ahitub. So the first problem I see here is as David was speaking to the priest Ahimelech, it was almost like he wasn't aware of his surroundings. He felt safe. He lied to Ahimelech, and as he was lying to get safety and not to be given over into the hand of Saul, because he had the big picture of what God's kingdom is all about. We looked at all that. He wasn't really paying attention. He didn't notice that Dog was there. He didn't see him. Or maybe he didn't think anything about it. And sometimes if it's like when you repent and there's still something that's gnawing at your subconscious, or wat is gewete, jou gewete? There's something telling you in your conscience that you're missing something. David missed Dog that day when he was with Ahimelech. And now this Dog has run all the way from Ahimelech. He didn't tell Saul, but now that Saul is promising reward and position and to make you the leader over, the captain over thousands, and possession and fields and vineyards, now Dog comes forward and he says, I saw David, and David was with Ahimelech. And now Saul has something. He's got intelligence. He's got a spy that is giving him advice on the beloved of God. And unfortunately, the Bible does talk about, Yeshua says in the end days, brother against brother. And the Bible talks about when they persecute you and they will bring you before the judges and before the synagogues, and they will actually think they are doing God a favor. How many people will be dogs in our lives right now, but also definitely for the age to come, for the season to come, where the people that doesn't bow before the Antichrist will be killed. But of course, there's going to be hiding in caves. We've got the whole second Exodus, the greater Exodus. And there's going to be periods where we will go through what Judah Maccabees and David went through. But there will be dogs in our midst. And we need to spend time with God and not just rely on our own ideas and cleverness and lie here and do a little bit of deceiving there and enemies' lines and even deceive them a little bit to think that we are crazy, whatever it's going to take. If we're going to rely just on ourselves for that survival, we will be missing the dogs that is lying around like hyenas and waiting for an opportunity to go and tell the governments where we are, who we are, what we are doing in order to receive a bit of reward. Just like the Jews did in the Holocaust. As the Nazis started taking over and started bringing more and more difficult laws out to limit the Jews and eventually to capture the Jews and put them in the, what was it called? In those specific areas where they were not allowed to come out. Let me just find that word. In the ghettos. The Jews, they were chased out of their homes, their property was confiscated, their businesses was ransacked, and they were all chased into these ghettos. Later on, they were chased into the concentration camps. And if you know the end time, New World Order and all their plans, you also know about the FEMA camps. The FEMA camps. That's nothing else but typical Holocaust ghettos and typical concentration camps. So, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so as these Jews in the Holocaust were chased into these ghettos, some of them, of course, weren't captured. As soon as the raiding of the Nazis in the streets of Poland and Germany and all these European countries started, a lot of the Jews ran away and they went into hiding. Some of them even went into the hiding into houses of Christians and Germans inside Germany and Poland. And these Christians, it was their family members, the dogs inside the families, that went to the Nazis to say, oh, I know where there are Jews hiding away. I've heard somebody speak, and I know in that cave, in that forest, I know there's Jews hiding. And in that house, in the basement of that and that and that house, there are Jews hiding. So the dogs went and, wat is 'n klikkie back? Klikkie back, hang 'n klikkie om jou nek. When people go and tell stories, you call them in Afrikaans a klikkie back. So they went and they click it. They gave information. They told on their own brothers and sisters. And the Nazis was able to capture them and kill many of them. You know how many millions were killed. So we've got the same scenario here, where dog is doing the same thing, where we are being taught we mustn't miss them. We must know our enemy, and we must know who to trust and who not. And we must be aware and listen to the small voice inside and look around. And if you see a dog, then you must be careful. David wasn't careful, and that was a big mistake. We'll see what a terrible mistake that really was as we continue. And this dog represents people that are fearing, not only doing all these evil things for reward and for being able to continue to buy and sell, but also because they are fearing the government more than they fear God. And that's why Revelation 21 verse 8 says, the fearing ones, together with the whoremongers and all the evildoers, are outside of the city. Inside the city is God's loyal servants, but outside are the dogs and the fearful and the whoremongers and the magicians and the unbelieving, the abominable, the murderers, the sorcerers, the idolaters, and the liars. And they all have their part in the second death, the lake of fire that burns with brimstone. And also, if you look at the root word for this dog, this name, the root word is actually dag. And dag in Hebrew means fish. And I'm thinking about Dagon, Daag. Dagon was the idol, the fish idol, Dagon. And he was also worshipped, and babies were offered to him and burned up for him. And Dagon is still being worshipped today with all the abortions and stuff. But this man, this dog, with his root word in dag, in fish, makes me think of God's prophets that has been killed by the dog. With his root word in dag, in fish, makes me think of God's prophets that has been killed by the Dagon followers. And even if you take the Dagon worship a bit further into the Middle Ages, into the Dark Ages, if you look at the Dagon priests that wears that thing they call a mitre on their head that looks like a fish head, and they've got two little strings at the back coming down their neck. You know exactly, I'm talking about the Roman Catholic Church with that mitres on their head. That is a typical Dagon priestly hat. If you look at the Dagon priests in the ancient religions, you'll see they wear exactly the same hat as the Roman Catholic priests these days, and how they killed the God's people. In the Dark Ages, how many believers were martyred and burned up. And even in Judah Maccabee's time, the believers that still didn't. Dark Ages, if they found a Bible with you, they killed you, and they burned you at the stake. So this Antichrist system is not just here in ancient pagan religion, but we can see this being repeated in cycles all throughout Scripture, and then all throughout history, and how it will be repeated again in the end days. And Dog continues, as Ahimelech the priest inquired of Yhwh for David, and gave him some stuff, food and victuals. He even gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. He told all this to Saul, and Saul sent then to call Ahimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, the priests that were at Nob, And all of them had to come to the king because the king summoned them. Altogether, there was 85 priests that came from them all. Now, you son of Ahitub. And Ahimelech answered, Here I am, my lord. And Saul said, Why have you conspired against me, you and David, in that you gave him bread, you gave him a sword, and you have even inquired of Yhwh for him, so that he can rise against me to lie in wait as it is this day? First problem, Saul, you idiot. David is not trying to raise an army so that he can kill you. You are the one that is paranoid. You are the one that has conspiracy theories. Poor Ahimelech wasn't conspiring against you. Neither Ahimelech nor David wants to stand up against you and kill you. These are all lies. And Ahimelech answered the king and he said, What? Who is more faithful among all your servants than David? He's even your son than David. He's even your son-in-law. What's wrong with you? Are you an idiot? Well, he didn't say that. He said, he goes and he does all your business. I mean, remember, David told Ahimelech he's on business for Saul. And Ahimelech says, David is honorable in your house. He's an honored man. He did all these battles for you. He's fighting for your glory. He's your son-in-law, man. How can you think he is conspiring against you and that he wants to kill you? And I am also faithful to you. I'm not conspiring to kill you. What are you accusing me of? And everything Ahimelech said was the truth. But as you know, the legal system, especially when the Antichrist system will take over the whole legal system, it's already difficult these days. You know, you are not even allowed to talk about, you are not even allowed to talk about the curse of hell, that God is going to punish all the people that doesn't come to him in repentance and that's breaking his instructions and that is not part of his kingdom. They are all going to burn up in the end day judgment. You're not even allowed to talk about hell because then it's called hate speech. You're not allowed to say to a man who thinks he's not a man but another gender, you're not allowed to say anything, not in school, not in universities. You are totally taken out. You are being persecuted if you believe in creation and you don't teach evolution. You're persecuted in schools and in universities. And so we can go through this whole dark, black kingdom that is persecuting anybody that speaks the truth. The truth was totally banned from YouTube and Facebook, and you even stood to lose your license if you were a doctor and you dared to expose the lies about the whole pandemic and to bring the truth out. You were persecuted. And how many people actually got sentenced to jail if you were caught running on the beach in the morning during the lockdowns? You were taken into custody because you're supposed to go sit in your house. You can't run without a mask on the beach. And it was people, older people that had nothing to do, that was sitting in their houses, looking around, seeing somebody in the street during the lockdowns and called the police. The dogs that was watching for, I don't know for what reason. But now, what we learn from this, this whole process of how Ahimelech is telling the truth to King Saul and trying to make him see that he's wrong. And Ahimelech is not lying or saying anything that is even remotely to be considered treason against the government. But yet, as we will see now, you are not allowed to question. You're not allowed to question the king or any of his rules and regulations and mandates, because if you question that, then it means that you are in rebellion against the king's law that everybody else accepts. no matter how stupid it is, everybody else accepted all the mandated laws, and the people who questioned them got into trouble. Poor Ahimelech is going to find that out soon enough. Ahimelech continues in verse 15. Ahimelech continues in verse 15. Did I then begin to inquire of God for him? Be it far from me. Let not the king impute anything unto your servant David, or to me, or to my house and the house of my father. For your servant knew nothing of all of this. I didn't know less, I didn't know more. I didn't know that David is actually after your life. I don't believe he was after your life. But if you say he wants to kill you, I didn't know that. I helped him because he was on your business. And the king said, you will die, Ahimelech, you and your father's house. So it doesn't matter what Ahimelech told him. And even if David was going to kill Saul, and Saul was right to try to persecute David, Ahimelech just explained to him that he's not in conspiracy with. He's innocent. He just did what the priestly duties was. And he doesn't deserve to die. But even if he does deserve to die, then, he must be killed. And Saul mustn't impute any iniquity against his house or his father's house, meaning all the other people besides Ahimelech himself. But now Saul says, not only will you die, Ahimelech, I didn't hear a single word you said. I don't believe anything you say. You're going to die and your father's house. So the king said unto the footmen that stood around him, turn around now and kill the priests of Yhwh. Flippin'. Turn around, kill the priests of the holy God of Israel. This is a big thing to say. Saul was actually confirming who these people are again. Everybody knew these were the priests. In his own words, he said, the priests of God. Kill them, because their hand is in the hand of David, and because they knew when he fled, and they didn't tell me about it. But the servants of Saul would not put forth their hand to kill the priests of Yhwh. Now, for me, there's two beautiful things here. First of all, Saul is a paranoid, antichrist, beast, satanic serpent picture. Satan is an absolute idiot, trying to lie about the people of God all throughout the ages. Here in the life of David, in the lives of Judah Maccabees, in Yeshua's life, in the disciples, in Paul's life. How many times did the serpent influence the Pharisees and the Sadducees and all the other people, influence the Pharisees and the Sadducees and all the other people to conspire to kill Stephen and Saul and the disciples, and of course Yeshua. Yeshua wasn't trying to kill the Pharisees, but the Pharisees had this paranoid, egoistic, what is the right word? Selfish reasons. They knew Yeshua was the Messiah. And this I can prove to you. They knew he was the Messiah. But yet they wanted to kill him. Saul knew David was the anointed. And he wanted to kill him because he wanted to keep his place on the throne. David was no threat to Saul, but Saul made up the threats against David. But his threats didn't convince everyone. So it shows me that all these servants, that they just, first of all, they weren't convinced that David was an enemy. Secondly, even when Ahimelech said, he was honorable in your house, he's honorable in the palace, in the streets of Jerusalem, where you guys sang songs to him. He's so honorable, he even married your own daughter. He's the king's son-in-law. So many of the servants didn't really believe Saul. But even if they did believe him, they couldn't get themselves to take a sword and kill the holy priests of God. And this gives me encouragement for our end-day journey as well, that there will be many dogs in our lives. And as we saw the previous sessions, there will be many Ahimelechs in our lives along the way to help us. And there will also be, I'm just going to say it out, there might be people inside the governments and inside the army, in the police system, because these were the soldiers, the footmen, the soldiers of Saul's army. And within the footmen, these men knew they cannot kill the innocent priests of the holy God of Israel. And so we will find Ahimelechs in our end-day journey. We will find footmen in the armies and in the military and in the policing system that will know we are the innocent beloved of God. And they will refuse to kill us. But unfortunately, we will also have dogs in our lives that we need to watch out for. Because then the king said to dog, turn you now and kill the priests. And then dog, because he knew he was going to get position, he's now Saul's favorite man, he's number one. Nobody wants to listen to Saul. Saul feels sorry for himself. Nobody is telling him anything. Nobody wants to kill the priests. But he's now Saul's favorite. He told him everything. Saul knows that dog feels sorry for him, and dog believes in him, and dog is going to stand with him, and hopefully Saul is going to reward him very nicely and give him a great position next to Saul. So dog is the one that turns around and he kills all the priests, 85 of them, who wears the linen ephod. 85 men that was wearing the linen robes of the priests. And they had the ephod, the ephod that the priest was wearing on their chest. They had the priestly ephod. How can you get yourself, to kill an innocent human being, but then go as far as to kill the position of the priestly office? It's like today when the Pope goes around. Everybody has lots of respect for all the priests. Oh, Father, pray, priest. Oh, Father, pray for me. And Father, I have sinned. Please forgive me. But the Pope is even more superior. People fall upon the ground and they laugh and they cry. And they think the Pope is, Jesus on earth. So people has a huge amount for respect for the holiness of the priestly office, as had these footmen. But dog, who probably also had, the same emotions. You grew up with the priests being the highest respected people in Israel. But his power, hungry greed and lust was bigger than his respect and his fear of God and of God's priests. And he killed 85 of God's priests. And Nob, the city of the priest, a dog smote with the edge of the sword. Actually, the only one that even spoke to David. But he killed all the priests. And then he went to the city. And Saul obviously gave him a whole army. And they totally killed all the people. The women, the children, the sucklings, the oxen, the asses, the sheep. All of them was killed. And this makes me understand that the dogs is fighting against God when they fight against God's people. And of course, we can be scared of them. These people were scared of them. Here they come and they are just destroying everything and everyone that is even remotely linked to David. In the end days, anybody who's even remotely linked to the true Yeshua and not the false Antichrist Yeshua will be just persecuted and killed. Some will escape. Yes, they'll be in caves, but many will be killed. Innocent people, God's people, the holy, beloved people of God. But we mustn't fear them. Why? I want to turn to Psalm 52, and then I'm going to end with that. Because as David was fleeing, and as he realized afterwards what dog had done, and as he was crying and feeling so bad for being the cause that Ahimelech and all the priests and the whole city of Nob and all the children and the women and even the ox and the sheep was killed, David wrote Psalm 52. And look at this. In his anguish, David, in his fear while he's hiding, in his heartbrokenness for what this horrible enemy of God has been doing, he writes this most beautiful psalm. The steadfast love of God endures. Psalm 52, to the chief musician. Psalm 52, to the chief musician, a psalm of David, when Doeg, the Edomite, came and told Saul, and told him everything about what Ahimelech had done. David writes, why do you boast yourself in your mischief, O mighty man? The goodness of God endures forever. Your tongue devises mischief. Your tongue is like a sharp razor. You work deceit. And he's not talking to Doeg only. He's talking to the whole dark system, the whole serpent, Saul, Antichrist, deceitful system with their tongues like sharp razors. And he says, you love evil more than good. Isn't that true? How the end times people will love money more than the goodness of following Yahuwah. You love lying. You love lying rather than to speak truth. So Doeg also could have spoken truth. He could have confirmed Ahimelech's words, but he decided to love his devouring words, to love his deceitful tongue. And David continues, and this is what I'm encouraging you with, and myself. God will likewise destroy you forever. He will take you away. He will pluck you out of your house. He will root you out of the land of the living. The righteous will see what God does to all you dogs. They will fear and they will laugh at him. And they will say, behold, this is the man that made not God his strength. The people in the end days that will survive the beast system because they've joined the beast system overcomes true believers, and the fear becomes too strong, and they don't rely on God for their strength anymore, but they rather give in, take the mark of the beast, join the Antichrist armies, bow before the image of the beast, lie about their fellow brothers and sisters, clicky back and tell the government where they are. They don't rely on God, but you trusted in the abundance of your riches, because Saul is going to give you a lot of riches now. You'll be rewarded in the hand of the serpent. The serpent likes to reward his people. Look at all the multi-billionaires that is ruling the world today. You rely in your riches and the abundance you have. You strengthen yourself in your wickedness. But then David says, but I am like a green olive in the house of my God. We are the olive in the house of my God. We are the olive branches that Noah's dove went to fetch after the flood, when God destroyed the earth. The olive leaf, the olive branch, was what the Ruach HaKodesh, the dove of Yahuwah, came back with to the ark. And we are the olive branches that will be grafted back into God's olive tree. So we are the olive branches. We are an olive tree in the house of God. And although we hide in caves, and although you kill us all, we trust in the mercy of our God forever. And therefore I will praise you, O Yahuwah, forever, because you have done this. I will wait patiently on your name, for that is a good thing before your saints. I'll trust in you, even when they come and they destroy us and we are afraid of them. We will trust in your mercy forever and ever, because we know what you're going to do with them. We're going to see the end of their wickedness. We know your end time plan. We know the end of the book. We know how it ends. And we are rather going to wait patiently on you, Father Yahuwah, because that is the good thing that the saints can do. And that is why the book of Revelation says in Revelation 14 verse 12, here is the patience of the saints. Here is how you will be able to wait, to be still and know that I am God, he says, to wait patiently for God, for Yhwh. Here is the patience of the saints, they that keep the commandments, and they that has the testimony of Yeshua. We must learn this patience. We must learn to write psalms, sing psalms, read the psalms, even as the sword of dog is busy killing us. Even if we are hiding in caves, or if we are standing up out of the caves and we are starting to fight for our God. Not being afraid of the kingdoms of this world, the rulers of the earth and the kings of the world that is fighting against God and God's anointed one, like Psalm 2 says. Not afraid of them, because if we're afraid of people more than we are afraid of God, we are going to find ourselves, like Revelation 21 says, with the dogs. We are going to find ourselves fearfully and on the outside of the city, not on the inside, together with David, the beloved of Yhwh.